Hi, I'm Kiat. My metric number is 26462. So today I'm going to present a persuasive topic on why the government should decriminalize the offence of attempt to commit suicide in Malaysia. Have you ever thought of ending your own life? Can you imagine how frustrated a person is if he or she is trying to end his or her own life? By referring to article of Muhammad Faizul in 2018, Issues and Challenges of Mental Health in Malaysia, mental illness is not a small problem anymore in Malaysia. It is because the second biggest expected problem that affects Malaysians after heart disease is mental illness by the year of 2020. Normally, people who face mental health problems will have suicidal thought, and that is the reason why there is an increasing number of suicide attempt cases in Malaysia. However, it is not the worst scenario. You can imagine when you try to commit suicide by hanging yourself in your home or by trying to fall from a deadly height with intention to die by suicide but somehow fail. In a couple of months later, after you discharge from the hospital because of failed suicide attempt of you are being investigated by the police for committing a criminal offence. Criminal offence? Yes, you are right. In our penal code, which is a law that codifies most of the criminal offences and punishments, attempt to commit suicide is an offence in Malaysia under section 309 of our penal code. Under section 309 of penal code, the punishments for those who attempt to commit suicide is a term for imprisonment up to 1 year of with fine or with both. The suicide attempted cannot find themselves any better way and find suicide as the last resort. But what is waiting for them is imprisonment. Is the tragedy right? But this is the reality of our law. Maybe it's time to reform the law on attempt to suicide. So today, I'm here with you as a law student who learned criminal law in my law school and will share about why government should decriminalize the offence of attempt to commit suicide in Malaysia, or in simple words, make suicide legal in Malaysia. It is because the current law does not help in deterring suicide. The suicide attempters need mental help instead of getting into prison, and the law is already outdated and not relevant to current scenario. Now, let's dive into the reason as to why government should decriminalize the offence of attempt to commit suicide. Firstly, because the current law does not help in deterring suicide. Like what I mentioned just now, the current position of law that punish the suicide attempter is merely unfair. The punishment of imprisonment will end up putting them in a worse scenario, which will make them become more depressed. When they are sent to prison for serving the term, the reason of being in prison might become a joke in the prison, and their offence will be made fun of by the people in the prison. Even when they finish their term in prison, they discharge from the prison, the incident will turn into more serious and become a topic in the society. And it is not only affected to the individual who attempted suicide, but also to his or her family. The depression and the amount of stress that the person and his or her family that need to suffer will be definitely a lot less than the stress that the attempter suffers alone before this. Back to the question. It might cause more people to commit suicide, not only the individual, but also the family of his or her. So, who should be responsible for this? Government or the society? Hence, I am pretty sure that the current position of law in punishing those who attempt to commit suicide is not the best solution, because it will never help to reduce the number of suicide, let alone to deter suicide from happening. So moving on. Secondly, the government should decriminalize the offence of attempt to commit suicide in Malaysia, because the suicide attempters need mental health assistance instead of getting into prison. So according to the former health minister, Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad, in a media statement in 2018, he said that there are around 4.2 million of Malaysians who are currently facing or living with some mental health condition, and he expected there will be more numbers in the future. The increasing number of Malaysians who are suffering mental health issues is very worrying. In addition, the serious COVID-19 pandemic will certainly make the numbers increase greatly by reason of the problem of unemployment, for example, loss of income, and domestic violence in the house. In addition, the stereotype of Malaysia who thinks that those who seek help and assistance from relevant authority for mental health is uncommon, or make those who suffer mental health issue more difficult to seek for help. Because of this, they choose to suicide to end their emotional suffering instead of pouring out their heart feeling to proper authorities. However, it must be noted that any kind of self-harm or even attempted suicide is a mental health condition, and hence they must be treated medically to cure and be cared as patients like other diseases instead of being treated as prisoners. The society should help and look into the underlying factors or the root of the problem that caused the suicide attempter to give their life up. For example, personal financial problem, and thus give the assistance and help them. Therefore, rather than sentencing those who commit suicide, the better way is a way to question what drove them to these lowest points of their life, and find ways to assist them to overcome the problem by accessing them to medical assistance and counseling or any kind of services that they need. Hence, I strongly believe that the act of decriminalizing the offence of attempt to commit suicide will encourage those who suffer mental illness to reach out for help and assistance with the proper mental health authorities. So lastly, the government should decriminalize the offence of attempt to commit suicide in Malaysia because the law is already outdated and not relevant to the current scenario in our country, in our nation. Today, Malaysia is one of the 3 countries in Southeast Asia region that still penalize the act of attempt to commit suicide, along with Brunei, our neighboring country, and Myanmar. Out of 11 countries in Southeast Asia region, 8 countries had either not included the act of suicide as offence in their penal code or had appealed the provision of suicide as offence in their law. Our neighboring countries, Myanmar and Singapore, are also 2 of the colonies of British back then in 1940s, which say the same provision of suicide as offence in our penal code. Yet, Singapore had in a way forward and further to us, whereby Singapore had appealed the act of attempted suicide as an offence in their penal code through the lowest house of parliament, or in our country, Dewan Rakyat, in the beginning of this year. Malaysian penal code is inherited and adopted from India during the colonization of British, and hence many provisions are the same, similar or identical to Indian penal code, including the provision on offence of attempted suicide. During the era of colonization of British, the law was heavily influenced by the religious belief that the act of suicide is against the will of God. Hence, to deter the act of suicide, the best way to deter the suicide is to penalize those who try to commit suicide. However, over time, is this still the best way to deter suicide for now? Yeah, it is noteworthy that India had passed the Mental Health Bill 2016 in lower house of parliament in India to legalize the act of attempted suicide since March 2018. Besides, according to World Health Organization WHO study with 192 countries around the world about the situation and the scenario in their nation after decriminalizing suicide in their country, the organization stated that there is no report showing that by the act of legalizing suicide will make the numbers of suicide increase. Therefore, for me, I see no reason for the government to not decriminalize the act of attempted suicide as an offence in Malaysia. To conclude, there have been studies and it's the intention of the government to decriminalize the act of attempted suicide as an offence in Malaysia since the Pakatan Harapan was in the office as the government. But due to the serious COVID-19 situation, in Malaysia, and upon the political crisis threatened move, Malaysia has experienced the change of government, and until now, there is not any bill to be tabled in the lowest house of the parliament or Dewan Rakyat on legalizing the act of attempted suicide. Because of this, non-governmental organizations (NGO) such as Malaysian Health Coalition, MHC, and Mental Health Advisory Council had urged and called the government to repeal the Section 309 of Penal Code on attempted suicide. Hopefully, the government can take initiative to table the bill to repeal the section in the parliament shortly, as the current law does not help in deterring suicide. The suicide attempters need mental health assistance instead of getting into prison, and the law is already outdated and not relevant to the current scenario in the nation. Thank you.